Today, we're going to tackle a paradox from this ancient text that, honestly, it messes with the whole idea of what it means to be a good person. It's a puzzle, but one that might just flip how you think about your own actions. So let's get right into it. So let's just start with this question right here. I mean, it sounds totally backwards, doesn't it? We spend our whole lives being told to try to be good. But what if the trying itself, that little voice in your head that says, hey, I am doing a good thing right now. What if that's the actual problem? Well, that is the big, mind-bending idea at the very heart of the Diamond Sutra. And here it is. This is the puzzle. I mean, reading it for the first time, it just sounds like nonsense, right? How can something not be what it is just so it can be what it is? It's a real head-scratcher. But stick with me here, because I promise you, by the end of this baffling sentence is going to make perfect, crystal-clear sense. Okay, so to crack this paradox, our first clue is to completely rethink what we mean by the word equality. We've got to kind of recalibrate how we see the world before we can even begin to think about how we act in it. This comparison, it just goes right after our default settings, As people, we are wired to compare, to measure, to judge everything. We see a crane with its long legs and a duck with its short legs, and our brain immediately slaps a label on it: unequal. But the sutra's view is totally different. It says reality doesn't play that game. A crane's legs aren't better or worse than a duck's. They are just absolutely perfect for a crane. And that right there, that's true equality. Things just being perfectly what they are, without us layering our judgments all over them. And this little poem just nails the point with such a beautiful image. Think about it. The spring sunlight doesn't pick and choose. It doesn't decide, oh, I'm going to shine more on those tall branches and less on the short ones. No, it just shines. And the branches, they just are. Some are long, some are short. Nature isn't ranking them. That's a human thing we do. And the first step here is learning to see the world with that kind of clarity, without all the extra labels. Okay, so we've got our first key, this idea of true equality. Now, the second key. Well, this one's even deeper. It asks us to turn our focus inward and start questioning the very idea of who we think we are. So the Diamond Sutra talks about these things it calls the four notions. The easiest way to think about them is like four kind of sticky, fundamental illusions our minds just love to cling to. And what they all do is create this feeling of separation. Me over here and everything else over there. So let's quickly unpack these. The self notion is asking, is there really some permanent, unchanging me at your core? The person notion questions that hard line between me and you. Are we really so separate? Then you've got the being notion, which challenges our idea that humans are somehow separate from or above the rest of nature. And last, the lifespan notion asks, is your life really just this neat little box with a start and a finish? Altogether, these four illusions are basically the building blocks of what we call the ego. So here's the absolute kicker. For an action to be a truly good deed, according to this teaching, you have to do it without being tangled up in these four ideas. It means acting without that strong internal story of, I am doing this amazing thing for you. All right, so now we have our two keys. Seeing the world as it is, with true equality, and acting without this illusion of a separate self. So let's take those keys and go back and finally unlock that paradox from the beginning. So you can see here, any good deed can really go down one of two paths. On the left, you've got the deed with attachment. That's the one we all know. I, the good person, am helping you, the person who needs help. And look, it feels good. But notice how it just makes those four notions stronger. There's a self, there's a separate person, there's a clear division. Now, a deed without attachment is something else. The action is the same, the help gets given, but the internal monologue, that story about the helper and the helped, it's just gone. The action just becomes an action. It's exactly like that spring light shining on the branches. The sun doesn't float around thinking, wow, I'm such a good sun for warming these flowers. No, it just shines. So when you can act with that same kind of purity, you let go of the whole concept of the good deed, even while you're doing it. And there it is. The riddle is solved. A good deed that's full of, I am so good for doing this, is, in this way of thinking, actually not a good deed, because it's all tangled up in ego. But when you do the act without that mental baggage, when it is not a good deed in your mind, that is the exact moment it becomes a truly, purely good deed. It's basically a recipe for acting without ego. Now, I know this all sounds super philosophical, maybe a little out there, but there's a really practical, down-to-earth side to all of this. So the question becomes, how on earth do we actually live like this? Well, there's a really famous Zen story that gets right to it. So you have this student, right? He's looking for the capital T truth, the path to enlightenment. He goes to his master because he wants the secret, the special technique. And the master's answer is just shockingly simple. He says, the ordinary mind is the path. Not some special state you have to achieve, not some complex theory you have to memorize, just your regular, everyday mind. Of course, the student is confused, so the master explains a bit more. He says, look, trying to know the path, trying to figure it out with your intellect, that's just a delusion. But on the flip side, not knowing, just being totally blank and ignorant, that's not it either. The real path is something you live, not something you think about. So what is this ordinary mind he's talking about? Well, it's the mind we were just discussing. It's the mind that sees the crane and the duck without judging. It's the mind that can help someone without getting caught up in the story of me, the hero. It's a mind that is just present for reality, exactly as it is. Centuries later, another Zen master wrote this beautiful poem commenting on that story, and it just perfectly captures the feeling. It starts by just seeing what's there. No judgment, no preference, no ranking. Spring has flowers. Autumn has the moon. It's just pure observation. And here it is, the final amazing point. What are the idle things hanging on your mind? They're the four notions. They're the judgments, the anxieties, the constant story of me, me, me. And the poem says, when your mind is free of all that clutter, then any moment, any season becomes the best time of your life. Happiness isn't out there somewhere. It's about the state of your own mind. So we're going to end not with an answer, but with a question for you to carry around. For just a moment, forget about trying to be good or bad. Instead, just ask yourself this. Without all the extra stories, without all the judgments, what is this moment right now actually like? The answer to that, well, that's the beginning of the path.